So you can leave the leaves in. Every part of it is medicinal. Leaves, fresh stem, flowers. The flowers are by far the most potent. They're the most commonly used in your traditional Chinese medicine type herbal tinctures or elixirs or teas. The honeysuckle flowers are used because they contain the most bioactive medicinal properties. Okay, well, I can't hold both of you up at the same time, golly. So the major thing that I want to talk about here today, being that it's definitely, blossom season for the honeysuckle, is that this is one of the world's most prominent, most highly sought after and used herbs, used for the purposes of viral infections and other types of infections. What's up, buddy? That's buddy, that's a carpenter bee. You're good, man. Just don't pinch him. You'll be fine. So traditional Chinese medicine, it's Japanese honeysuckle. Japan, China, primarily they use it all the time. They actually, what I was reading this morning in one of the research studies and reviews was that it's used, and it's been traditionally used and indicated for the use of epidemics, febrile epidemics. So an epidemic that would come through that they didn't, thanks, Ren. An epidemic would come through, and back hundreds of years ago when they had already identified that honeysuckle was an effective antiviral, well, I guess they wouldn't have identified it to be an antiviral way back then, because science, even before it was capable of understanding the difference between bacteria and viruses, I mean, they've been using honeysuckle to treat individuals with varying ailments. Liver problems, respiratory problems, allergies, and again, the epidemic viral type or fever type. So if an epidemic of fever, so they wouldn't even know what was causing the person to actually need to develop the fever. I want to say that very specifically that way because the reality is a fever is really good for you. So you'll see in some books and some texts and some articles that Japanese honeysuckle can be used for a fever. You're not using it for the fever. You're using it to enhance the body's capability of fighting off an infection. In far more detail, that a fever is something extremely beneficial. And this isn't a fever video, but I'll transition, hang on. So, a fever is something very beneficial. A higher fever, is actually associated with an increased survival. So, that being said, we don't want to treat and suppress a fever, and that's not what honeysuckle does. Honeysuckle, when you look at both human and animal studies, and then you can even, what's the matter? Yeah, I pick it, she throws it on the ground. It's the way it works. When you look at these studies, it has direct antiviral inhibition effect. So it can inhibit a virus from being able to infect your body, infect your cells. So what that enables you to do then is you don't need to mount such a substantial and significant fever type or febrile response. So the honeysuckle, watch out for the thorns, sissy. So the honeysuckle is not suppressing the fever. The honeysuckle is actually enabling you to have a lower overall viral load. One of the best studies, I think, probably one of the coolest studies ever done on honeysuckle, in my opinion, is the one where they took a decoction. And decoction is basically more than a tea. So a tea, you would take the flower parts after they were dried and just put them in hot in a cup of hot water after you boiled it. And a decoction, you're actually going to simmer it for anywhere from usually flower parts, those types of things, 30 minutes to an hour is all that would be necessary. When you look at like the stems, maybe the leaves, or if you're using another herb and using a root, you do a decoction for much longer. And mushrooms, you do a way longer, usually like 8 hours with mushrooms. So just side note there. But using a honeysuckle decoction, so basically a very strong tea in this animal study, and then they fed that. So it was orally fed, it wasn't injected, it wasn't used like a single compound extract. What they found though, when they looked at it at the molecular structure, you know, and what was preserved and what was preserved throughout the heating process and making of that decoction, they actually found that there was a microRNA compound there. So this RNA strand was preserved in the heating process, which a lot of the RNA, you know, basically the makeup of these plants, you want those too? So, it's nap time, everybody. Can you tell? And the wife's gone, so the wife gets a break today. So this microRNA was capable of being consumed and preserved in the water, then consumed in their water. These mice were consuming it, and what they did is they watched its effect within the body and where it went. They had already established its potential to be inhibitory to viruses, influenza specifically in this study. So they knew it could inhibit, this microRNA can inhibit the virus, but they wanted to dive down a little bit deeper and figure out what was taking place within the animal's body, and then possibly being able to allude to what's taking place in the human body, what's taking place in our bodies when we're consuming a honeysuckle tea beverage or a tincture. I included the honeysuckle in our elderberry reishi and honeysuckle tincture because honeysuckle is immunoadaptogen. It's immunomodulatory. It helps promote a balance of your immune system. It helps it. What? Nice, dude. Sweet. Well, that's a stick, and the vine is wrapped around it. So that's why I included it, because of its anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antibacterial. It's hepatoprotective. And you'll kind of understand here in a second why it's hepatoprotective. Hepato meaning your liver.
It's not a vine.
No, that is a vine. That is. Don't argue with me. No kidding. I'm. No, yeah, well, that's a stick from a dead tree. That is a vine. So again, honeysuckle is a viney, almost looks like a shrub because it will grow. This is a down dead tree, and it will grow up over it, and now it's up into these larger trees. I mean, it'll get up, and it can basically overwhelm trees. So it's actually considered it's considered an invasive species, which, I mean, to me is, it's not invasive. They consider it invasive in North America, you know, here in Tennessee, it's considered an invasive. You know, it's ridiculous is, you know, in 2003, during the first SARS coronavirus. So we're in a time period right now in you know, spring and going into early summer, you know, here soon. We're in spring of, you know, 2020, and we're supposed to be all running in fear of this SARS coronavirus. And it's basically, it's SARS-2, they call it COVID-19. Let me see if I can set her out here. There you go. Go help, Sissy. So, you know, we're sitting here, we're supposed to be running in fear, waiting on a drug. We should be, you know, saying to everybody, oh, shelter in your home, don't go out and don't be around your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your family members. You know what? Hide in fear. There's nothing that can save us. And I know that YouTube and probably Facebook won't like allow this to stay up, but the reality is, think about this. They used it during SARS-1. So SARS coronavirus, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus. So that was done and used in Japan and China during SARS-1, and it was effective. In fact, it was promoted by their governments to be used during that time, and it helped extinguish that outbreak. We'll have to bring a ladder next time, buddy. You've got a lot here. Look, you've got a lot in here. Get all these, okay?
Can you please hold me up so I can
Amos. You're big, dude. Your sisters are small yet. You're too big for me to hold you up that long. So let's get them. We'll get a ladder out here, man, and we'll get more. I'm so happy that you're so excited about picking all this honeysuckle. So we used it for the first one. It's effective. I mean, they have specific studies that show in herbal mixtures, honeysuckle inhibits SARS or coronaviruses. Why aren't we using what God provided for us that literally many people spray with chemicals to kill? Yet right now we have, yes, there are thousands of people dying from viral pneumonia in the US. It's really not much greater of a, epidemic than we see with the typical flu or a severe flu. If we would just start using the things that God created for us, like that's the biggest thing that I just wish more people understood. And if more people understood that and more people could see that He's provided for us, we wouldn't be cowarding in fear. We wouldn't be sitting back in our home trying to hide from it, trying to reduce the spread. We would be enhancing people's capability, their body's capability of responding to an infection. Whether it be viral or bacterial. And that's what's cool about this. So you don't get that from pharmaceuticals. You don't get the ability to reduce inflammation, to be able to inhibit a virus, to be able to enhance your body's physiology and immune response. So it provides constituents and compounds and things like that that are not only going to stop your body from becoming infected at times or reduce the amount of virus that is able to attach and infect your cells, but it actually enhances your body's capability. These constituents feed your body in essence, enabling you to mount a stronger or better, and I don't want to necessarily, the strong term is probably not the right term, a better immune response, a greater capability within your system of being able to do what it needs to do to clear that virus, to clear possible secondary infections from bacteria. Again, antiviral and antibacterial. But it's not going to destroy the good bacteria in your stomach. So it's not going to have a weakening effect on your immune system. So that's what's like amazing about plants. Like if you study plants, you study the things that God created. One of the scriptures that I love to reference is Ezekiel 47:12. Let fruit be for food and leaves be for healing and healing of the nations. You know what? This is what the world needs right now. They need more people speaking up and saying, enough's enough. We're not going to cower in fear of this virus. We're going to go out and say, hey, God, what did you create for us to use in this time? What has history shown us? What has science shown us? That honeysuckle is antiviral to, anything from the flu to HIV. Literally almost every single virus they've ever put up against honeysuckle, hepatitis, HIV, influenza, coronaviruses, all kinds of other viruses have been tested, or honeysuckle being tested against them, and honeysuckle was effective. Folks, so there's people with HIV right now that we could inhibit that. Now, somebody's gonna say, hey doc, did they do that in human trials yet? Well, I only found basically Petri dish studies, okay, of the use of this plant. Now, what I would ask everybody then is say, you know what? They don't have amazing drugs for HIV right now. People still suffer. Their immune system is weakened over time, and they end up succumbing to maybe a bacterial infection, pneumonia in the long run, but yet this plant right here has been found to inhibit HIV viruses, neutralize them basically. Why haven't we gone to human trials? This is a food medicine. It's a plant that can be put in teas and sold widely. It's so safe. And it can be used in extremely high concentrations very, very safely. So the reality is, this is a plant God's created for us all right now. I really, really, truly believe that. There are many different plants right now. Right now, I know that wormwood, sweet wormwood, artemisinin is being used in other countries to treat this. Yes, sissy? I know that's a thorn. Don't get caught on it. See how the deer have ate the top off of it? we're collecting it. We're going to be storing it up throughout, and you know, you got to collect it in the, you know, the springtime when it flowers like this. Again, just about any flower you see, whether it be, you know, I go towards the bright white. Those are probably the highest, they probably have the highest concentration. I know that in one region I'd have to go back and reference it, but I'll try and get you the references to a lot of the articles and studies that I'm talking about. But putting it all together, I know that they even studied the constituents of in the beneficial compounds or several compounds that are in the flowers, and they found at different times. And really these bright white ones here, even if they're opened up, those have amazing, that probably has some of the highest concentrations of some of these compounds. Now, they didn't measure the amount of the microRNA like I talked about in that other study. Most of the time when you buy a prepared dried honeysuckle, you know, dried herb, you're gonna get it where the flower buds are not yet open. They're gonna be like this right here. So they're gonna be that kind of lightish yellow color to white color. And, you know, as long as they're not brown, and basically that means that they're oxidizing, kind of like an apple. If you bite into it and then it turns brown, it becomes oxidized. As long as they're not oxidizing, then they're gonna be a great bud and flower to pick and put in for tea later. So we're gonna save this up because, you know what, then we don't have to live in fear. We already know that God's given us this plant. It's here for a purpose. It grows wild and crazy because a lot of people need to enhance their ability for their body to fight off an infection right now. So, you know, when I look at it, I'm like, we are sitting by in the pharmaceutical industry. If I could talk to this, what the pharmaceutical industry is doing right now, they are literally saying that they're the gods, that they're the rulers, that they're the only ones that can ever find anything that's going to be capable of helping you fight off an infection, let's say it coronavirus or anything else. You know, they want you to believe that all you can do is wait on a vaccine, or all you can do is wait on one of their pharmaceutical drugs. And that is a flat out lie. That is a lie, folks. This plant right here, if we were using this, now is it gonna save everybody? I understand the skeptics or the, you know, the naysayers are gonna be like, well, Dr. Dale, they haven't proved it in this coronavirus. They've proved it in previous SARS coronaviruses that it was effective. I mean, a friend of mine even said that she's got an exchange student from China in her home right now. And guess what? He's like, what we're using back home and people are having great results with it is a herbal mixture, a traditional Chinese medicine mixture, and it contains honeysuckle. It's actually, I think it was the primary, secondary herb within that, traditional Chinese mixture. So, you know, hundreds and thousands of lives have been lost because of this false idolatry. I mean, that's what it is in medicine and pharmaceuticals and drugs, believing that you can't do anything. There's nothing God provided. There's nothing natural. They discount natural while saying, we're gonna just do nothing and test a bunch of people, and we're gonna use our statistics to scare people. Meanwhile, they're not like blaring it from the rooftops is what they should be. It should be all over media if we really wanted to save lives. If here's what I believe. If government and the medical community, and I'm not blaming the entire medical community because I know there are some great medical physicians out there right now who are encouraging their, one second, sissy, real quick.
I need you. Ren's going over there.
Oh gosh, is there a diet tiger?
No.
Okay, then we should be good. Ren's going over there. I mean, it's, dude, you are doing amazing. Hey man, how about we figure out how many of these containers you get, you fill for me, then I'll get you some Legos.
Yeah.
They're convincing the world to live in fear, and so many people, so many systems, the government. I mean, just the other day, encouraged some people to read some articles and posted it about different, I mean, even isolated compounds, supplementation that's effective against coronavirus, and it's been studied in that. But yet people don't want to talk about natural, they don't want to promote natural. It's like our society is, we're living in a world that literally wants to deny the amazing design God has in nature. That's where we're at right now. It's kind of what I wanted to say during the season right now of life and in this world is, and I'm not saying honeysuckle's the only one, I'm just saying honeysuckle is it's a, can I use the word, freaking amazing plant. It's like, holy cow. Look what God did for us, what he provided for us. That's what I want to do with my channel. That's what I want to do with, you know, promoting these herbs. You know what? Either, and I want to tell people, like, when it comes down to it, here's the thing. If you live in this region, start harvesting it now. Take away from, by taking care of yourself, by going out and utilizing the things God's given you in your backyard maybe, or at a park, you know, just make sure it's not sprayed, make sure it's not chemical, you know what I mean? If you go out and harvest that stuff, you are taking away from the level of financial capability of the pharmaceutical company to really push and regulate our government officials and deceive and deny God by teaching medical physicians that drugs are the only way. So, you know what? We're gonna collect a bunch of it. We're gonna make some teas and drink it regularly, even though I have zero fear for me and my family right now. Even if I had no honeysuckle on me right now, me and my kids, you know, my wife, my family, my patients, we live in confidence. We live in full faith with zero fear of this virus. And I hope more people can come to that realization and understanding. You know what? If there's somebody out there that you know of who has a weaker immune system, you know what? Honeysuckle, even if they're on medications, folks, even if they're on medications for a autoimmune condition, this right here has been found to help people with autoimmune conditions. All right? So it's not going to distort their immune system. It's not going to harm them. It's actually something that can be used in a food, and if they were to consume it on a regular basis, especially during a time like this, and into the future, this applies as well, we could really be saving a lot of lives. So before we have a total meltdown and breakdown, we're going to get this little girl down for a nap. This is Ren. This is Magnolia, my two little angels, my buddy. That's Amos over there, working hard to get his Lego set, you know, picking honeysuckle. So anyways, y'all, I know that it wasn't a well-organized video. I know there's probably a lot of information that was just kind of thrown at you. I just wanted to talk about it and talk about just kind of mindset and the mindset I have about these things. It's okay. So y'all, hopefully this video gets out there soon enough that you would be able to get out this springtime here in 2020. Go do some outdoor socializing with nature, with God, spend some time with him, you know. And something I've been wanting to tell a lot of people is, you know what, if you're suffering, if you're sick right now, you know, I pray for you, for anybody that's out there right now, God, I want them to seek you and understand that you've provided for them. You've provided what they need in this time. God, I pray that they find somebody that will enable them to be able, hang on, Rennie Penny. God, I just pray that, you know what, they would find somebody to lead them in the direction and help them understand, you know, and find the herb, the plant, the leaf that you said would be used for healing of all nations that they need right now. That's my prayer for every one of you out there.